Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. And got a special guest with me today. We're continuing the run of special guests we have on the show. Nick Mantas here on the pod, sports reporter from KSAT 12 and San Antonio. Obviously giving us perception from San Antonio's perspective today as a team that we've been connected to between the Hawks and Spurs. But Nick, first, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I'm good. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, we're starting to get closer and closer. These rumor mills are starting to get stronger and stronger. So it is an exciting time to be covering these teams.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, you guys are in the spot we're in this year. You guys had the first pick last year. Obviously, it was much easier to know who you were going to take. Had a generational prospect,
in
that draft. But at the same time, we are in that same position, and also at the same time, y'all control the next 3 years of our draft picks. So so the San Antonio Atlanta connection is very, very strong right now. And everything like that. But so we're gonna go into that. But first, I want to talk about the Spurs in general. First, coming off this season, obviously we knew they weren't going to be that great. The biggest thing they wanted to see was Victor. How was Victor going to pan out in the league? He ended up being probably everything you expected, maybe even a little bit more. You know, you can see why he's considered the ultimate mismatch, a unicorn, whatever you want to call him, an alien, whatever. But just reflecting on the season that San Antonio had, what is the biggest takeaways for you for this team?
I think it was that it hit everything that we thought it was going to hit as far as goals are concerned, especially for Wemby. But I think that there's still something missing. I think that was definitely the thing that I think it brought people back to reality, because there's been, ever since 2014, the last championship, there's been, this buzz about, where are we going as an organization? Where's the Spurs brass thinking? Is Pop starting to get towards that age where we should, he should think about choosing a successor? Is there somebody in the wings, that would be a good fit? And then you get this new energy source that comes in with, not just, getting the number one pick, but getting Wemby. And then he has the year that you were just describing. I think for a lot of people, there was almost like a jump. Okay, we're back. And then they see what happens when it's just him by himself and not really having a ton of, you have your role players, but when he's out, it's almost, there's a lot of people who are looking at it as a guaranteed loss. And so I think it's for a lot of people, there was a little bit of a taste of reality and saying, this is good. This is great. We got a phenom. You got, I'm pretty sure, if I remember, LeBron didn't make the playoffs this, for rookie year either. And so it's just, okay, here's where we are. So now let's build off of this. Let's find a JR. Let's get somebody else in here. Let's try to build around that. And I think that's the part of what came at the rest of the season. And I think a lot of people were excited to see him. Ticket sales were as high as we thought that they were going to be. And it was an exciting experience. But I think a lot of people, were brought back to reality and are very realistic about this team is exciting to watch. He's exciting to watch. The energy, and you could see a media day like Pop was there's a little bit more bounce to him again, because he knows he has somebody who's walking in the same footsteps as a Robinson and Duncan, and then you got him, as the number one pick and a rookie of the year. So things are good, but as you have now the fourth and the eighth pick, how can we get better? How can we develop? What can we do as far as trades? Is there a point guard in the wings that can do a little bit better than Trae Jones? Where are we going to dance here? And so that's the mystery of this offseason and the excitement behind it as well, which is that there's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of ways they could play. So
yeah, and I think what's interesting too for you guys is that, the biggest thing I've seen is just if you guys can make the right moves. Obviously we're not saying that Spurs are about to be championship contenders, but you're always looking at the next step, which is like playing, that range.
Yeah.
And so, I think for San Antonio right now, it's going to be important to, figure out and identify who you want as that core with Wemby. I think before Wemby, I looked at you guys from Devin Vassell and Keldon and out and Jeremy and, Trae Jones. And it's like, there's some young talent here.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, is that now with Wemby, the group that you want to keep? Is there's people from that group you want to move? Do you completely restart the core with Wemby?
Yeah.
So I guess one of the questions now is, like you said, you have the 4th and 8th pick in the draft. There have been a lot of players connected, obviously, in this draft class to you guys. And the question is San Antonio trying to be sellers? Are they trying to move up? Are they trying to acquire a veteran? Initially, right now, what do you think is the best move for San Antonio with those picks? Do you think it's just maybe better for them just keep adding a couple of young players from this draft and then maybe just seeing, okay, we'll worry about free agency and all the other stuff once we get past that?
I think it might be a little bit of bias for me to think about like who would be a fit in the point guard position for maybe either it's a pick with that 4th pick, or you can get somebody who can bring in who has a lot of tenacity. One guy that I've been watching, a little bit about my history. I don't know if you can see in the double box behind me, but there's a Arizona lacrosse helmet right there. So I went to the University of Arizona where I was a strength and conditioning coach. And one of the guys I worked with was TJ McConnell. And him being the, bulldog point guard that he is, and the way he was able to step up at the Eastern Conference Finals, it was really exciting to see. And I was texting him throughout the season, trying to see if he was going to be in San Antonio. We can meet up. We didn't get a chance to see each other again, but that was a guy who I was really close to in college as an intern strength coach. And I think that he would be just his ability to, connect with the team, his ability to he has a great tenacity. There's friends of mine here who said, okay, yeah, but we have Trae Jones. And I was like, oh, okay, but at the same time, when it comes to somebody, Trae Jones still has the ability. He has since Duke and in his first couple of years here in San Antonio, he's had the ability to have an incredible outside shot, and he can be quick in the lane. But as far as somebody who can do both on both ends, I like the fact that, maybe TJ's not going to give you 30 a night, but he's still going to have an incredible amount of tenacity on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that Pop or other people would love that. Kai TJ's a coach's son. He comes from Duquesne and then went over to Arizona. And so I think that having another coach out there in the court is what you want in somebody who can play the point guard position. And so that's maybe, that's a little out there, because it's just maybe a little bit of my, University of Arizona bias. But at the same time, I think he's shown a lot of people around the NBA that, he's somebody to really look out for, and maybe somebody who, they could make some trades for, bring somebody in like that. Whether that's with the 8th pick or whether you get a point guard. I liked UConn's guards this past season, what they were able to do. And so grabbing one of those guys, I think, the backcourt position is definitely something to keep an eye on as well. I think there's a lot of different options like we were talking about before we started the show. And I think, I would like to see maybe bringing somebody in to be another, a veteran point guard like TJ or somebody else, maybe to be either your starter or to bring whoever you use for that 4th pick up to speed as to what Pop is thinking, what it's like to play defense in the NBA, which is people like to call that a joke nowadays. But, at the same time, I think if there's anybody who still resembles that, it would be somebody like TJ McConnell.
Yeah. I mean, listen, TJ, he's always that one player. He's on multiple teams, but like when he plays, it feels like he can impact the game.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you brought that up, because I think he would definitely be a good player to bring in, I think, for any team. Just what you said, tenacity, what he brings to the table. But so now this transitions me into the Hawks Spurs connection here.
Yeah.
So obviously they're in the market. People feel like a guard, especially with Wemby. You have Wemby. You need that guard to go with him. Atlanta has 2 that has been mentioned in many conversations throughout the season. There's been rumors that San Antonio and Hawks did talk at the trade deadline just, to see, about interest levels. And there's rumors that I've always seen packages that they may want. They may want the 1st pick. They may want to package picks and players for a guy and things of that nature. So there's a lot going. So the first person I wanted to ask you about out of the 2 is Dejounte Murray. Obviously, we got Dejounte from you guys.
Yeah.
At that time, San Antonio said, we're rebuilding. Dejounte, you don't have to stay here through that. Now you have Wemby, and people, and I feel like even though Dejounte didn't leave San Antonio the best, it seems like it's been forgiven. It seems like people have moved on, and I've seen some Spurs fans be like, I kind of wouldn't mind having him back now with
Right.
what we have. And then Dejounte has talked about multiple times. He's still in contact with Pop, loves Pop,
Yeah.
still has a good relationship with him. Is that a guy? Do you think that's a realistic option that San Antonio will explore for him first? Just because, like, obviously he'll probably cost you less than what Trae would.
Yeah.
But is that something that they may want to actually explore a reunion there?
That I definitely could see that happening, because not just obviously we talked about just the relationships that he has with the organization and the city, but I think that's something that you brought up a great point just now about it's going to be a little bit cheaper as far as what you'll have to give in order to get him back, and I think that he's somebody who could not only offensively give a great opportunity, but he understands the system. He knows what Pop's going to want. He knows, maybe the couple assistant coaches have switched around a little bit, but he can get a sense of what this is going to be. So that for me, I think that would be option number one, just because of what the connection to this organization, the connection to the game plan, as well as the fact that it'll be cheaper. As far as who I think Spurs fans here in the city want to see, it's making a big splash like getting Trae Jones. What that's going to cost, whether that's Jeremy Sohan and Trae Jones and a couple of other picks, whether that's the whole kit and caboodle as far as everything that the Spurs have this year, plus cash. I think that's always a conversation, and so it'll be that I think will be a little bit more risky, just because of the fact that we saw them hanging out at the All-Star game, All-Star weekend and stuff like that. There's always fun to see them getting to spend time together. But as far as them actually gelling on a team, that I think can be a little bit more risky. And so option number one, I would say go with Dejounte, knowing that he can be a little bit more of a glue towards that, and he gets to enjoy coming back and being a star again. I think that he had that while he was here, but I think he had a little bit of that Wemby was going through right now. It's like, you're great, but we don't have anything else to build around you. And so we're going to rebuild. We're going to bring, get a couple of, top 10 picks in, get, Devin Vassell, other guys and stuff like that. And we'll see what we can do. And now that we have the guy, we have Wemby, you can be, Damian Lillard to Giannis. You can be that guy, and we're going to need you to have that ability to spread the floor and hit threes. And if there's anybody who knows how to do that in the San Antonio Spurs uniform, it's Dejounte.
Yeah, and especially because I know when he left, one of his weaknesses in his offensive game was shooting. That's something that has improved under us a lot. His offensive game has improved in different ways because he's had to play a little bit different. He's been a two guard.
Right.
And I think that has helped his game in some capacity. And I think, but I agree with you that I think he wants to go back playing a point guard position. I mean, it makes sense. It's understandable. Yeah. So, that would obviously be something he could do. He knows what the Spurs culture is, and he knows what they expect from them. So it definitely is someone. And then you're getting a guy who, I don't know how much you've been able to pay attention to what he's done in Atlanta, but he's hit game-winning shots. He's been a clutch player. He's had big games. Like he can be that guy where, Wemby gets 40, he can go get 30. And I think that's important to have when in these situations. You always want those top duos if you can, especially in the Western Conference. But now going, like you said, you mentioned a little bit about Trae. Going into Trae, the Trae one has been always interesting because of, like you said, the relationship. It feels like Trae would love to play with a guy like Victor. I think Trae and Victor would just be unstoppable with his passing ability. Victor, just the height and just his skill. That's like the high-end trade you can make with those two. But there has been some reports I've seen where they're like, there's just not sure if Trae fits maybe San Antonio's culture, what they want there. And that's why I've seen reports where they say they do have interest. They don't have interest. Interest is kind of whatever. It's like I haven't gotten a consistent what Spurs' interest in Trae Young is. I've seen a package, like I said, both picks, plus some of the first-round picks that we gave you guys, giving some of those back, then giving up maybe a Vassell or Jeremy or Vassell and Keldon or something, some type of big package. Do you think that would be a feasible thing? Obviously getting Trae back, a guy who averages 25 and 10. But you are, like I said, giving up some of those assets, which with Trae wanting to be in a win now situation or being in a more winning situation, I don't know how greatly you think that might change San Antonio's perspective. Obviously, we have to see how free agency goes. But I mean, is that something you think the Spurs are willing to do so early in the process with Victor and just be that aggressive in making a move like that?
I don't think that they are. And I think that might shock a lot of people, but I don't think that they are. It's interesting that the concept of not skipping steps, walking up a staircase and not having to worry about, oh, let's jump to here, let's jump to there. That has been a mindset that Pop has been echoing almost, countless times a week in press conferences. Then you hear when they ask Wemby about his idea of it, he's like, I don't want to skip steps. And I was like, oh, the message is getting to the player. It's not that far of a trickle down, and so it's interesting to hear his perspective is, that this is going to be something that they're going to work on for a while. And, Pop's got a 5-year contract, and now after this year, now it's 4 years and stuff. It was an extension. And so, he doesn't want to leave. He's, enjoying, his wine cabinet, as well as the ability to have an incredible French phenom. There's been plenty of social media videos of them going out to dinner in downtown San Antonio, not too far from my apartment here. And so it's like, they're enjoying their time together. They're building together, talking together, spending time. And I think that's part of this process is take it easy, take it slow. We'll see what we can get. Maybe there could be some more options, but not. I think that the perspectives and maybe what they were trying to say through the tea leaves of saying that it's not maybe a good fit for what Trae is going to want in San Antonio might not be the city. It might not be the organization. It might just be Trae wants to win, with maybe get him over to LA, maybe get him somewhere where he can have an opportunity in the Western Conference to get some, actual decent, I'd say more competitive seasons and deeper runs in playoff experience, because that's what he's looking for. The Spurs are like, we used to be in a position of like, everybody help us. Now that they got a little bit more swagger and confidence, they're like, okay, we can grow from here. The stump is starting to grow a little bit bigger. We'll go from here. And so it's been interesting to see how that's really changed in one season, and we're still tempering with expectations. You'll have people, a national network saying that, Wemby wants to be out in 3 years and he's going to LA. Like, you obviously don't live in San Antonio and you haven't spoken with Wemby. I can see that because that's not the perspective of him or the organization or, anything that he believes in. And he, before the draft, he talked about one of his biggest strengths was that his mental toughness. Doesn't party, doesn't drink, works out, does his thing. You're not gonna see him at a nightclub here in downtown. It's not him. He's
easy to spot him.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Because he's going to hit his head on the ceiling, and when everybody's jumping up and down. And so it's just part of the process of like getting to know this guy this past year has been fun, and hearing from him and stuff. And so, I think that the slow and steady is going to win this race. And I think that's the way that they're going to move forward. Unfortunately for Trae, he's looking for the option. And if that's, what he's looking for, he might not be able to find that here in San Antonio.
Yeah. And I think too, at the beginning of the offseason, from the Trae Young perspective, I know that the rumors were hot. Recently, I've seen some rumors that are kind of like, all right, Trae's probably going to be here. Obviously, like I said, with the first pick, see what that turns into for Atlanta. And then we'll see what other moves they make. This is why it's considered a big offseason for the team.
Right.
Because I mean, Trae also has a personality. He doesn't give me I want out vibes. He doesn't give me that. He's just kind of like, I'll play basketball. I just want to make sure you guys are trying. And if that's the case, we'll see where we are. And then when the contract comes up, we'll see what the best decision for me is, which is fine, because some guys are more assertive and like talk. And, a lot of things are media push. Like you talked about with Wemby. Oh, he's going to leave. I remember having those conversations during the playoffs, Wemby, Spurs, if they don't win next year, he's going to already start thinking about it. It's just like, what? Like, he just wants to play basketball. I'm sure he wants to win. Like, anybody wants to win. Yeah. But, I mean, he's not going to be like, if we're not winning championship contention by the time I'm out of here or the first contract ends, I'm going to dip. Right. Usually most players sign because they want the money. Yeah. And then that second contract, one after that, it's like, all right, where are we now? Because I'm getting a little bit older. So I think it's interesting, about that when people try to drive that media from national media, especially because local media, we're like, we kind of know how he feels.
Right.
National is kind of like, all right, what's going to create storylines? So
who's going to click on this? Let's see what I can say to get you to click on this real quick.
Yeah. Close to him. Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll just ask you this quick question. So obviously you've covered Wemby all year long. Can you just talk about that experience? Obviously, outside of when you see him, he's like, you got to put the mic up there, hey. but but just him as a player, obviously coming in from France, like you said, he doesn't party, doesn't drink, he works out, he plays basketball, he's dedicated. And I think also one of the smartest things you guys did this year was have that minutes restriction for him. Not say you're going to play 35 minutes a night from the get-go, because they knew even though he's this generational guy, he's still a skinny guy. He can't have him out here against Joker 35 minutes a night just like it's nothing. Yeah. And I think that was big for him. So can you talk about just that Wemby experience that you went through in San Antonio this year covering him?
Yeah, one of the things that we all kind of learned this year was patience. Be ready to let this develop, let him do his thing, get him within the system, and just primarily be ready for what he can get going. And I think one of the things that also people forget was that he just came off of a championship in his league in France, and then flew over and went for the draft, and then he also was doing, he was in the draft in New York, and then the next day flew out to San Antonio to be there for, to all the fans who were out there, with breakfast tacos in the airport, making sure that, and then there was, and then him and the rest of the draft class were there at the Riverwalk, with the beautiful, theater there in downtown. And so it was like, do all the fanfare, do all the excitement, but then, fly back and rest, and relax a little bit. And then, people started getting excited again about the, summer league and stuff, and what's that going to look like. And then they had the whole, I don't remember the whole Britney Spears situation, where she went and grabbed him, in a hotel in Vegas and stuff. I remember that. And they're like, oh, he swatted at her, like his security team like hit her. It's like, man, you coming out of nowhere, like yelling at Wemby, like, the guy's 7'5", like he didn't swat at anybody. Security team was like, whoa, they didn't see her coming. So there was just kind of a crazy, wild, spring, draft into the summer. And so I think for him, it was more along the lines of just kind of getting an idea of what that was going to be like. And I think, Pop was like, okay, let's work him into this, because sure, it's going to be a lot more aggressive to play internationally. Like he came and one of the first things he said was like, we do not get beat around like we do in Paris. Like we get elbows, knees, everything. Like people are coming for you internationally. And so now, how he can get up to speed as the way in which things were going. I think it all taught us that everybody's going to need a little bit of a ramp, whenever you're getting into a new position. And so let him enjoy that. Let him get into it. By, I want to say the holidays, he was almost completely going full tilt, and a lot of people were pumped, and we had Spurs specials where we're, debating how many minutes he's going to get tonight, and so it was just because you try to, Pop's not going to give it to you, you try to ask Pop and stuff like that. And one of the best things I really do feel for them, but almost every single game, the newspaper media guys, they'll say, what happened out there tonight to Pop? And he goes, where were you sitting? You saw what happened. Like, were you not watching? And so he's not going to tell you. Like, if that's how you open the press conference, that's okay. We're going to have to dig through this. So we're going to have to be more specific with our questions. We're going to have to, be a little bit more attentive to how things are going. And so, we're working a lot from the organization as to his increase. It wasn't a press release about like, please be patient. It was, this is what we're doing, and you guys are just going to have to deal with it. And so, so I think that was one of the things that I think a lot of us learned this year, and to just temper expectations. And I think that was a huge deal, because I know a lot of people, not just in our department, but at different stations here in San Antonio, the local TV market was like, let's get everything, let's be his first water bottle chug. You know what I mean? Like, let's get every single, like if he's stepping out, we're there, if there's anything. what, like there were people, Tim Duncan, I think it was Manu and David Robinson all went to this one restaurant here in the Southtown area of San Antonio with Pop. Within 30 minutes of their dinner, there were people outside the restaurant, like in the street, like hundreds of people, like waiting for him to come out. I had a security to block off the area so they can get to the, travel bus that they were in, as a dinner. And then they all were able to leave quietly and peacefully. But like everybody was ready for all of it. And so I think that's one of the things that we all had to learn, was to be ready for anything that can happen, to learn more about him as a player. His frustrations mainly are due to himself, the way that he is developing. I think that was a part of his process that he had to learn as well. That it's going to be some time for him to be playing at the level that he wants to play at, and to ignore all the noise. I think that I want to say Bobo at one time, was yelling at the refs for, saying that they were calling calls on Wemby soft, or stuff like that, and it's just, he didn't have anything to say about that. He didn't really
Remember that.
pay attention.
Man. Bobo probably feel like, I'm the original unicorn. What are we talking about here?
What are you talking about? Like, all the talking heads, people in all different parts of, in national, we're talking about, it's just another Bobo. It's like, oh, okay, all right.
I've talked to people who talked about Wemby, and they were like, I just don't know.
Right.
All guys don't really last. He could be Yao Ming and da. I was like, I don't know, guys. We got to see, because listen, he put on some amazing performances. I mean, you see, like, he is like very strongly probably going to be the best player of the next generation, it feels like, of basketball players.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I think is big. And I think it's great for you guys, because you get to say we were able to cover the start and the career of this guy who came in and just took over the league.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's almost like a moment of talking with people who have been in this market for decades. It's, it's a moment of, here we go again. When people are like, okay, we got David Robinson, and he wasn't maybe what he didn't grow into. He had his numbers his first couple of years, but he wasn't able to get them to where they needed to be. Now, now we got Tim Duncan. Okay, he's exactly as advertised. So he's maybe a little bit more Wemby, I say, because maybe a little bit more towards the Tim Duncan, at least in his first year. And the numbers that he was able to put up. And so now, as we've been discussing, it's all about finding him his Tony Parker, his Manu Ginobili. And one of the guys I think that a lot of Spurs fans here want to make sure doesn't leave is Devin Vassell. He's, not only was he able to, have incredible numbers last year, but he's able to be, he got hurt. So a lot of people were wanting to see how he was able to do this year, when he pretty much played the position as the number 2 guy on this team. Everyone came in, they're like, okay, Wemby's going to be the guy. So when Wemby was out, Devin Vassell took over, and we thought, well, what about Jeremy Sohan? What has he been up to? He struggled at certain times. I think a lot of it had to do with him getting in foul trouble early, and there was a lot of moments where, I think one of the guys that a lot of people like to talk about is this, he has a little bit of a temper from time to time, is Zach Collins. Another big guy and stuff. And so seeing Zach, go at people, I think it's rubbed off on Jeremy a little bit, and he went to school in the area. He's from Baylor Bear, and, can have opportunities to go back up to Waco and see his team and stuff. But there was a little bit more nasty in Jeremy Sohan's game this past year. And I think it's really interesting, because it's not what I think a lot of people are expecting from a top 10 pick, what he can develop year after year after year. And if it gets to the point, maybe him and, Keldon Johnson could be a package to get those guys moving on, and those 4th and 8th pick can be, maybe good replacements, or, because unfortunately Keldon Johnson's not been what people expected him to be. And he had to kind of take over as the guy. And now, there's a ton of games where he's coming off the bench as the 6th man. And so it's been interesting, but I think, definitely Wemby and Devin Vassell are the 2 people that a lot of people want to blow up the team. And I think they're like, okay, but keep the Wemby and Devin Vassell. Everyone else can go. But keep the Wemby. I'm like, okay, all right. Let's not get extreme.
Go crazy. Yeah. It's interesting you say that because another trade option between the two teams has just been literally you guys giving up 4 and 8 and maybe another first for the first pick we have again this year.
Right.
I don't know if that's something that you think would be enticing to them. But again, this is a draft class that they say isn't world beaters. I mean, realistically, if you make the trade, I don't see you drafting a guy like Alex Sarr. You got Wemby. I guess unless you want 2 7-foot+ guys in the front court, maybe.
Sure.
I mean, maybe Zachary Ricochet, maybe. I don't know. Is that something you think San Antonio would explore? Is maybe getting the first pick again from Atlanta?
Maybe. There were rumors that came out the last couple of weeks about that and stuff. And the first thing that a lot of us did, especially in our newsroom, was look around and go, why? Like, for who? You know what I mean? Like, if you want a twin tower situation, I'm sure Zach Edey will fall to 4. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like that, people are going to be there. You know, the people that I feel the worst for in this situation is I moved down here from Michigan, and I was in Lansing, Michigan, and so we covered a little bit of the Detroit Pistons from time to time, and yet again, you can have the worst record, you can have just a horrible season, you can do some tanking, you can decide whether or not you're going to keep your coach. And then you still don't get the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. Like it's been brutal for them. But as far as going back to what Atlanta got the number 1 pick, the luck of the draw of it, and I think that a lot of people are looking at it and saying, the Hawks have a little bit more confidence, just like the Spurs used to, like last year. It's like, okay, now we're in control now. Now we got this number 1. We can do some. So I think that the Spurs can offer a couple of opportunities, but it would have to be something big. And I don't think that the Spurs are in a position. I think the Spurs have their confidence back again to where, they almost feel like maybe OKC last year, where it's like, okay, we can build a team where we can get into the playoffs, so we can make a run. And so I think that they're looking to do that. And I think there's a couple of options in the draft. And, I want to see them go with that point guard position with the number 4, and then maybe get a power forward for the that 8th pick. And just stay where you're at. You're doing fine. You got a couple of people on the Austin Spurs you can bring in. Julian Champagny is a decent 2. Sometimes you can play the 1 as well, but you have options. And so I think that not doing anything drastic right now is a perfect way for everybody to realize that this process of slow and steady wins the race. And I think that's the way that the Spurs are going to continue going. If they decided to try to get that number 1 pick from Atlanta, I would be shocked. Have me back on the pod and be like, Nick, I told you so. That would be
Nick, I got to get you back on.
Yeah, exactly. How are you feeling? I'm like, crazy. This is insane out here. There would be tinfoil on the head. There would be all kinds of, like, you ever seen Always Sunny, when he has the board with a bunch of, like, he's like going crazy. He has like a bunch of.
I want to say I haven't watched it a lot, but I want to say I remember that from faintly what you're talking about. I want to say
you've probably seen it as like a meme and stuff like that, where like they're like, he's like, Charlie's like wide-eyed and he's like trying to connect the dots through like this yarn on like different press clippings and stuff. Like, that's how it's gonna be around here. Because they were like, what for whom? Like, where are we going?
We just had all these assets. Why would we just give them back?
Exactly. So you got enough, in the bank right now. So just enjoy it and build and grow and really do. And I think that's what they've been doing the last couple of weeks, is really doing a lot of talent evaluations. Whether that's either quietly bringing guys in, whether that's looking at a lot more film off of the what they were able to do. In their college ranks and stuff, calling coaches, talking to people at the college ranks. And I think it's evaluation time right now. And I think that the Spurs are going to find who they need at that number 4 and their number 8 and sit right there and enjoy it. So, I think we'll definitely, keep reading the tea leaves as to whether or not Atlanta wants to maybe get a couple people, knowing that, you got that number 1 pick. But but drastic is not how this Spurs organization has been,
Mm.
doing business the last couple of years. So
Yeah, definitely known for patience and building and growth and all of those things. And so I think it's nice hearing these rumors between the two, but like you said, you don't think they're going to be like super big splash. The most likely thing out of the three probably is the Dejounte thing if they feel like it's a reasonable enough deal. So I wouldn't be shocked if they do have a conversation just to see, okay, how are we, feeling things out like anybody would.
yeah,
In those
why not?
situations,
Why
you know?
not? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we'll have to see how that works out. So it's been
Yeah.
interesting, but I appreciate you, Nick, for giving me a great conversation on Believe in Hawks, man,
Sure.
about our two teams, man.
Yeah.
Let people know where to find you. If we have San Antonio people watching this, let them know everything that's going on.
Right. So San Antonio people will probably know me from doing a lot of reports on KSAT 12 here in town, where I'm not only a sports reporter, but also fill an anchor, doing stuff on the weekends as well. And you can find me on. I have now that I've been doing a lot of work for KSAT. We have to do a KSAT Instagram as well as a regular Instagram account. So my KSAT Instagram is KSAT Nick, as well as a Twitter KSAT Nick. You can find me there. Nick Mantas TV is where you can find my personal Instagram as well for a lot more. I post some reels from the behind the scenes of coverage that we have, and then you'll see a lot of my work will be on my work pages, like the finished stories and packages and stuff that we got going on. So you can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook as well. Nick Mantas, Mantas. You see it right down there. Exactly. So that's what we got going on. As far as what's coming up, we're going to have a ton of Spurs coverage when it comes to the draft. I know that we might have, I'm pretty sure we're thinking about doing a Spurs draft special. But at the same time, this time of year gets crazy because high school sports just, you ended with softball and baseball ending last week. But now we're kind of going into a period where, in a couple of weeks, June's going to be a little bit quiet. We'll, get things going when it comes to NBA coverage. But then, we got Cowboys camp in California coming up in July. And then we're going right back into, as I'm sure you've seen from any type of TV show, high school movie, high school football 2 days are coming and it gets wild here in Texas. So
I believe it. Yeah.
So we got a lot coming up, and social media is the best place to find me because I'm always trying to stay on there and stay updated, and so it's good to connect with more people, and so I welcome people to come check out what we're doing here in San Antonio because we always like meeting more people and talk to more people. So
yes, sir. Like I said, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on here, talk to
Yeah.
me about some Hawks, talk to me about some Spurs, man. Really enjoyed this conversation for sure. So definitely, man, if I need something happening and something happens between the two teams, man, I already know Nick's first contact.
Call me.
I'm
Let me
gonna
know.
try to see if I can install speed dial on here.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
See if I can get that
exactly.
contact in quickly, man. But yeah, man. So listen, guys, y'all know who I am. Y'all know where to find me. Bryson_2K on Twitter. Obviously Instagram, same thing as well. If you listen to this through any audio platform that you're listening to this on, leave a rating and review. If you're listening to this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends, connect everybody. If you got Spurs friends, connect them with this video too. This video has things for them as well. So definitely appreciate everybody tuning in. This is your Believe in Hawks episode podcast. It's your boy Bryce Lewis. We'll see you next time.